I'm a proud mother of 4 amazing and beautiful children. I'm also a nurse, a businesswoman, a proud military wife of 20 years, an active community member, and I am currently working on my 3rd degree. I have held contracts with the state of California, and yet my children and I were also victims of domestic violence for 20 years. My abuser was the love of my life. He was my high school sweetheart, an extension of my being. We were always very social creatures together, and he was so charming and so sure of himself. And while I began to spiral into an overly anxious and depressed, sort of irrecognizable version of myself, I never really saw myself as a victim. I would always think, I'm not perfect either. This is a private matter. He's right. I really do have such a mouth on me. I know I hurt his feelings. Maybe we're just both toxic. It took months of deep therapy to realize I had every right to be riddled with insecurities, anxiety, depression, and anger. And my words were a very valid human reaction to the suffering and the physical abuse that I was enduring. My abuser would often joke and say in a room full of dinner guests with a most beautiful blue-eyed smile and the calmest demeanor, "Aaliyah is my body bag buddy. The only way this woman is ever leaving me is in a body bag." And as he would make direct eye contact with me and lovingly place his arms around my waist for all to see, I would always smile back, often covered in bruises under my clothes. And I would often think, he must really love me so much, because inevitably there was always at the very least an "aw" from someone in the room or a "they're just so sweet." 20 years. I wanted everyone to love my abuser, and it was not difficult to do. Our names were practically one. He was not just my veteran, beautiful husband of 20 years and the father of my children. He was also our main income and my greatest life investment other than my kids. He was my high school sweetheart, as I said, and our marriage was one of my greatest sources of praise and accomplishment. Yet, with all that being said, my abuser also GPS tracked my every move, tracked my every phone call, text, email, and every social media interaction through his phone. And of course, I never had the same access into his private life, but nor did I care to have it. I loved him and trusted him, and despite our marred relationship, many times forgave him for things that a lot of people think are, for things that should have been unforgivable. On our very last night together, my abuser held a gun to me, strangled me, yanked me by the hair, fractured my ribs, gave me 2 black eyes, punched my jaw so hard that I could barely open my mouth or chew for almost 3 weeks, because I was finally going to leave him. If it weren't for my children, the truth is, his apologies were so grand and so romantic and beautiful. And oftentimes, he would enlist a whole group of people who then became highly vested in our success as I was hiding and healing my wounds. The truth is, I probably would have forgave him, maybe even still be with him, periodically covered in bruises under my clothes, or maybe even dead today. I am so fortunate because many victims aren't. Sorry. When I finally chose to leave my abuser, the shame and the guilt I felt was so entirely overwhelming. Thank you. Sorry, I really practiced this so that I wouldn't do this. Good thing for waterproof makeup. When I finally chose to leave my abuser, the shame and the guilt I felt was so overwhelming. I can tell you I still feel that shame today at times. The financial burden was crippling. We were social creatures, so the crowds of people who refused to believe that they had spent so much time or were friends with or business partners with or family with an abuser was wildly not surprising to me. After all, 2 whole decades. And we truly were the sweetest couple. Most of that was my fault, right? Social media. Who's going to believe you, Aaliyah? He would say to me calmly with a smile on his face. Who's going to believe you? I thank God every single day for the angels that he sent me to fight this war. Because leaving my abuser was just that, a long and arduous war. From the very beginning, I began to do what I always did. I hid and prepared to mend my family. I had no one and I had no place to go, is what I thought. However, this time I was so badly injured that I worried about who would take care of my kids if I didn't make it. So my friends Rachel, Beth, Susan from Empowerhouse, Brianna, who flew in today, Anna, Sheriff Taylor from the Sheriff's Department, I could never thank you guys enough. They were the ones to pull me out of the darkness, whether I liked it or not. Asking a victim who is oftentimes spiraling in darkness to fight an entire war is no easy feat. So please be patient. Financially, emotionally, mentally, physically. Oftentimes, without a support system of any kind, due to the isolating nature of the situation and its cyclical patterns, we're not the easiest people to deal with. Things that seem so black and white aren't so black and white to us. From the very beginning, battle after battle, angels showed up. My neighbors, random strangers, loved ones, people I didn't see coming. They armored up with me, and they went running into the fire with me to save what was left of my family, my beautiful children, and what I thought was a completely shattered version of myself. We are fast approaching 2 years in. The next battle is just over the horizon. I call this battle divorce. Abusers are born fighters. It is not over yet. Victims are often the ones who worry about diapers and milk and food and clothing, daycare and homework, let alone actual work. Homelessness, famine, mental illness are just one of the few obstacles that we face. A great big thank you to the Victims Fund and Empowerhouse. I could not have done this without you guys. In my darkest hours, there were nights where my abuser seemed to be a true Goliath in every sense of the word. And I thought, Lord, please help my family. Reasonable doubt demands that we, the victims, should all be perfect victims. I've got news for you. There's no such thing. However, of all the beautiful things that the fierce ladies taught me at Empowerhouse, Susan Sigmund taught me that no matter what or who shows up in support of your abuser, you have the truth on your side. I cannot tell you, I clutched onto those words so tightly that many nights they were my literal life support. Through the process, I began peeling all the dead layers of myself, layers of guilt and shame and burden, codependency under accomplishment, the overwhelming feeling of responsibility over my abuser. I began to do the deep work that most of us should really take the time to do but never get to. The work involved in shedding and identifying the reasons behind the people-pleasing, the low self-esteem, the anxiety, the need for belonging and acceptance. Light begins to emerge as we keep lifting and peeling those layers. That in itself is a slow and painful process. Yet keeping those fierce angels that continue to push you toward that light is so vital. So Brooke, Teresa, Brianna, I am so eternally thankful for you ladies. Thank you. I would like to leave you all with a passage of one of my favorite poems that my beautiful children, my reason for everything, have recently taken the time to quote back to me. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant and gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God, and your playing it small does not serve this world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence alone automatically liberates others. Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love. I thank you all very much.